Herbs with set, you deaf are what?
Really want to talk about like the types of things that we think are the types of things that are swirling around and like
for sure.
You know what I'm saying, like just all the different theories as to what it is that actually happened to him and stuff like that. You know, it's not this information came out that it was somebody close to him and that it wasn't even really gang related. It's something more personal. He called him a snitch or whatever, and he came back. But it's not far-fetched to think that it is still coming from a higher place. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's becoming a little too coincidental. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the biggest part of it, is the coincidental part of it. From the two major trains of thought out there, whether it be from it being his community ties being from the gang life, or from it being based off the Dr. Sebi documentary, you know, like me having a personal connection to both of those things, you know. For anyone to sit here and think that it could be gang related, that a person of Nipsey Hussle's notoriety and his impact to that place that he transformed and brought business and jobs to, that they could roll in there into 60s and murder that man in broad daylight, that's just highly unfeasible, because there's bloods right now mourning for Nipsey. But you know, at least another part of the distraction, whether it could be, you know, something, you know, masqueraded to look as such, or if that's the actual case, you know. But on the other half of it, to discount the fact of it being related to the Dr. Sebi situation, that's a hard one to really discount, because you look at where Left Eye was when she died. She was on Dr. Sebi's compound in Honduras. The Dr. Sebi's death itself, you know, you look at, you know, alleged deaths of holistic doctors in a shorter period of time. You know, the pharmaceutical industry is what it is, but we shouldn't get wrapped up in that side of it either. You know, there's a bigger conversation to be had here. You know, we're talking about Nipsey Hussle, the man. Like, you know, he was the true embodiment of what it means, especially for me, what it means to be a neighborhood Crip. Like, he's the living and breathing example of community revolution and progress, in which our organization was started for. He did that in the most prime and pure state. He had a fire inside of him that let him know that he was gonna make it. And that was telling him what he called his journey in the marathon. He wasn't gonna stop. And despite all those speculations that too many of us are getting lost in, we're getting lost aside from the fact that, like you said, this is a pattern. Because not only is this a man, not only is this a black man, this is the most dangerous type of black man that exists in this country, and that always has existed.
The ones who have put all the pieces together, you know what I'm saying, and really try to foster the change, have all been cut down. There's none of them that are still living for us to, we see them in history, but they're always that.
And their stories are the same.
You know,
their stories
end up the same.
Whether it be outright death or some sort of silencing, because we could do a brief recap of said history as we go down the line. We can look at Marcus Garvey, we can look at Malcolm X, we can look at Muhammad Ali. What these men had in common, you know, as an opposition to the people who they put on the forefront, such as the Martin Luther Kings, the W.E.B. Du Bois, the voices of the world. Like, what these factions of our heroes have in common is that these were black men who were strongly black-oriented, family-oriented, loved black women, raised black children, believed in black independence and black revolutionary thought tactics. Obviously, him being a Crip and gang related, he represents the military force of our neighborhoods, because in our purest existence and what we were started for, that was our job, and that's our role, is to be police force in our own neighborhood, because the police that we deal with externally are so corrupt. So these are all the attributes and traits that lie in this man. And once again, despite what we want to say, if it was gang related or because he called somebody a snitch, or whether it's because of a document, what drives home the underlying view for me and a lot of us, which is he was about a thought process. And he lived it, and the fact that this happened to him when he finally broke through with his music, nominated for a Grammy, performed at the Grammys. But that's what we have to walk away from, I feel like. And any retaliation that's to come of this, especially with what we're known to do and how we feel, you know, us as 60s or just being Crip or Blood or whatever we are, what we bang and what we jack. Like, despite all that, now's not the time to go back to the divisive ways of our organizations. Like, really what it is like, we have to continue what this man left on.
It
like,
seems very intentional that would be the case.
Of course.
The rival gang member, now the gang members are gonna go and avenge his death, and goes the cycle, you know? So going further, it's like, how does that type of shit change? It's like cliche to ask the question to me. It's like, is there a way for change? It's just what it is. Is this?
Well, let's talk about the seeds of change. But you know how I felt about Nipsey as a fan, like for years. Like what he represented was literally picking up where Pac left off, but in this new age. Because now that we've become aware, like Pac taught us to, and now that we got some of our money, what we gonna do with it? And he, and all his words, not just his words, his actions, he was doing exactly that, like, and has been, because he knows himself. His father knows himself. These are people from, I believe, Eritrea, like Ethiopia region of Africa, like, who know themselves and have always known themselves. And yes, they came up how they came up, product of that environment, but they mastered that environment to their benefit, you know, through family lineage and, you know, teaching us to do things. So those seeds are planted. Even the fact that, even if it's all speculation, there's gonna be young hood boys and girls talking about who's Dr. Sadie. It was gonna come from him. Right. He was gonna have people.
Sacrifice.
It's not like it's gonna. Yes, even if Nick Cannon finishes the work,
right.
Nick Cannon is not gonna touch the same audience that, you know, he was gonna have a bunch of people like, you know, Cheeto eaters and like junk food eaters, like all around here, really go and imagine the seed. So as far as like what can be done, that's the existential question. That's the ethereal, eternal question that we always are going to face, and that's a whole other conversation that we've been having for generations, and to the point that all it is conversation.
Right.
But he was part of those answers for when people like Pac died.
Right.
You know, he became that, and now, unfortunately, he's another one. You know, because, you know, us being in the same age range and like him having the influences he had on my life for like this amount of time, or imagine what he's doing to a small little child from LA right now. That in another,
I can see him. That be out there and go and take pictures.
You feel me? That had seen him. You feel me? Like, you know, and it hits different. You know, feeling this, because all our other heroes were dead by the time they became my heroes. Like Malcolm was dead by the time he was my hero. Bob Marley was dead by the time he was my hero. I was a small child by the time Pac died. Like, you know, like this, like I was fully aware, seeing him come out the mud and really do this. Like, so
yeah, it's good to be on that side of it. Like the people who see people in the past, like you talked about, seeing them really grow. But I guess it'd be 40 years from now. There's gonna be another Nipsey Hussle doing it, you know. But they'd be so far few in between.
It's probably not gonna take another 20 years. You know, there's already people like us that's already in the field. It doesn't just solely rely on the children, you know.
Right.
Because us on our levels and in between, there's people like us who's working, who's on our own marathons.
Right.
And now we see what
that's
we gotta
has
do,
to be
right? You know, it's
more
all
of a collective marathon.
It's an all-inclusive thing. Everybody's gotta get on their journey and like start running theirs. And I think that is how we make these changes. Like, and only people who could hear this is like us, the doers of the world, like the Nipseys of the world, like who have it in them to go and do something. Like, if you don't have that in you, like, you know, you gotta find another way to change the world. But for those of us in this fraternity of doers, that's what we do. This is what we have to do.
Find your do, be the do. You know what I'm saying? Pick up where that marathon left off for next. You know what I'm saying?
On hood, 6-0 to the world, bro. Neighborhood boogeyman, neighborhood Nips. Roll in peace, y'all.